So what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have another great guest on. He is an independent rapper, author, entrepreneur, and also British female deadlifting champion, Zuby. How you doing, man?
I'm all good, man. How are you?
Amazing. Yeah, I'm great, thank you. I'm sure you need no introduction. You've built quite a presence online, but for people that may not know who Zuby is, do you want to give a brief elevator pitch on what you do?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Zuby. I am an independent rapper, author, host of the Real Talk with Zuby podcast, coach, public speaker, social media personality. I do a lot of things. It all started out with just music. I used to be able to just say that I'm a rapper, but a lot of people know me for things outside of my music now. So all around creative entrepreneur. I've got an interesting background. I was born in the UK. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. My family background is originally from Nigeria. When I was in Saudi, I went to an international school for many years, which is why I don't really sound British because everybody gets confused by my accent. I'm an Oxford University graduate, studied computer science there, started rapping, released my first album when I was in my second year of university. And yeah, I've now released 5 albums and 3 EPs in total over the course of the years. Sold over 25,000 albums totally independently, built up a large social media following, performed in 8 different countries, been on a lot of the biggest podcasts in the world. Done a lot of cool things. So
that's amazing, man. A lot of interesting stuff there. I think the first thing is the fact that you grew up in Saudi Arabia. That's pretty interesting. So I myself actually grew up in Indonesia as a kid. So my dad's Indonesian. I got to live over there as like a little baby, and then actually I had some friends in international school in Malaysia, and I think like having that kind of experience at a young age, it like teaches you a lot about the world, and then you go back to kind of maybe England and you see how other people behave, and it's weird, man. It's like kind of a surreal experience. So for yourself, Saudi Arabia, what was that like growing up, and what was your experience like there?
Yeah, I loved Saudi, man. Saudi was cool. I lived there for 19 years, so from the age of 1 up until the age of 20. Although I came to the UK for boarding school and university, went over for boarding school when I was 11. So between those years, I was back and forth between the 2 different countries. But Saudi was cool. I lived primarily in an expat community. So where I lived was kind of like a little bubble. But then outside of that, you know, you'd also experience the sort of what I call real Saudi if you're going into the city or going shopping or whatever. So it's a unique country. It's different in a lot of ways. People in the West tend to be surprised by the fact that it's not some sort of like horrible, terrible place to grow up and live, et cetera. It's actually quite the opposite. It's a lot more comfortable. The standard of living, certainly if you're an expat, the standard of living on average is probably considerably higher than most places in the Western world. So it's kind of ironic that people think that way. But it's different in a lot of ways. Obviously, the climate is super duper hot and dry, gets very, very hot out there, up to approaching 50 degrees in the summer, in the middle of the day. It's very dry. Where I lived, it rained only a few times a year. A lot of things are different. People are very hospitable. I'm trying to think of some big differences. All the shops and everything and malls and businesses shut 5 times a day for the prayer call. The days of the week are essentially different. Well, the days of the week are the same, but the week runs from Saturday up until Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday is the weekend. So there are a lot of little differences there, but it's very safe. Where I lived was a fantastic community. And in general, I didn't have any problems there. People always expect me to have some sort of like crazy horror stories or something like that. And most of my horror stories are from, I don't know.
Not Saudi Arabia.
No, not from Saudi Arabia. Yeah, not from Saudi. So, but overall, it was a pleasant experience for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think people straight away have a conception of a place from the media and whatever else is put out there. I always say you should just judge it on actually your own experience. And I think you should travel to more places and then make your mind up before you make assumptions. But some people don't work that way. They'd rather,
Yeah. Most people don't. And you got to remember, most people don't travel.
Exactly.
You know, most people don't travel very much. So if you are someone who travels a lot, you're probably also friends with and surrounded by people who travel a lot. So you can get this idea that most people have also been to a bunch of different countries and been to a bunch of different cities, but most people have not. The vast majority of people in the world, even in the UK, certainly in the USA, haven't left the country. So you're always going to get a skewed image. I mean, look, the media skews everything. like simply like down the line on
Yeah,
every issue, the media skews everything. So if you get your perceptions purely from the media, then there's always going to be a narrative to it. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's all falsehood, but they choose things that make stories, right? You don't write a media article about you don't if you work in the media, you don't write an article about like, stuff was normal today. People went to the park and enjoyed the sunshine. There's got to be an angle. There's got to be something bad. There's got to be some violence, some oppression, some natural disaster. There's got to be something that makes the story. And unfortunately, we all know that negativity sells a lot more than positive. So anytime you hear, primarily if you're going to hear something about Saudi Arabia in the news, it's not typically going to be something positive. Just like, but FYI, for the people over there, if you talk to some Saudi nationals, they get the same skewed perception of a country like the UK or certainly the USA, right? There's a reason why a lot of people in the Islamic world, for example, are very anti-USA, right? Because
sure.
or anti-Western because they see certain things which isn't really painting a whole picture, or they're basing their ideas purely on certain governmental actions or certain historical actions, etc. But as you know, as someone who travels, there is a difference between the government and the people. Okay, so if I were to criticize the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, and say, I have some issues with the way that they do things, or someone is to say, I take issue with the way the U.S. government does some things or the way the British government does. And there's plenty to criticize, by the way. There's lots of things you can criticize that the American government has done over the past couple hundred years, right? It's not hard to find that. So, but that's a big difference between the American government and the American people, right? It doesn't mean that all 330 million Americans, or perhaps even the majority of them, also don't approve of certain things. And it doesn't really give you any clear picture of what people are actually like. If you go there and you're actually sort of on a ground level, on a day-to-day life level, you're not going to get a good perception of what it's really like. And that seems to be a big problem, especially with a country like Saudi, because most people don't travel there. And until very recently, you weren't even able to travel there. They just started issuing tourist visas in 2018, I think. So before that, it's a country that's kind of shrouded in a little bit of mystery, and people feel like they know loads about it. But you get this, you get this thing where people feel like everyone wants to have a strong opinion about it and feels like they're really knowledgeable, but you find out just how naive and ignorant they are. Especially with, like I lived there for 20 years, and I get someone who's never been there trying to argue with me about exactly what Saudi Arabia is like, and what are you even speaking on? And they'll send me an article, and it's like, yeah, okay, that thing could have happened, but I can send you. Look, this is not even unique down that line. I know people in the UK who think that if you go to America, like there's just people running around with guns. And, everyone is just strapped and people are having shootouts in the street and the police are just riding around shooting black people. And it's horribly like people get this perception because when America makes the news, it's often something bad. You've just had this man who was George Floyd, who was killed by police as we're recording this. This just happened recently. Some people look at that and they've seen this multiple times. They're saying, man, every time I see America in the news, it's the police, screwing over someone, shooting a citizen. It's a school shooting. Oh, gosh, another mass shooting, et cetera. That's what people see. Some people are seeing what's happening in the UK. Oh, my gosh, like, is it safe? I get people, I get Americans asking me, is it safe to go to London? I've heard there's a lot of stabbings. When I'm in the UK, if I'm going to America, I get, people, Zuby, be careful, stay away from the police. Like, they're always shooting black guys, etc. And I'm like,
it's stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah. It's like this is, you're talking about like 0.0001% situations. Like, I'm not saying that these are falsehoods because they're truths, but to sort of paint this huge broad brush and totally ignore probabilities and reality based on this skew, people sort of do this. People do it in everything, to be honest.
Yeah, you're right. And I think with people as well, they don't like nuance, right? So, there's always nuance, there's always subjectivity. And when people stereotype, it allows them to say, this is right or I am right, just like the Saudi Arabia situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they say Saudi Arabia is bad, in their head they think that it is. It doesn't have to be based on fact, it just has to be based on the information they find most attractive. And if that fits, then that's perfect, right? I think the George Floyd situation was handled terribly by the media, and I think anyone that's got a sane mind realized it was murder and it was horrific and it was completely wrong. However, not every single policeman in America is a racist killer, right?
No.
And the media has tried to divide people with that. I mean, what are your thoughts been on how they've kind of dealt with that?
I think it's horrible. Firstly, I think R.I.P. George Floyd. I think that's one of the most egregious police killings I've ever seen. I think it was clearly murder. I saw the video, and I don't need any more information to draw that conclusion. But the problem is, look, human beings are. I think I tweeted this today. Like, human beings are the most intelligent species on Earth, but we're also the most stupid, right? Like, It's true, right? Look at the animal kingdom. Okay, you can see most animals' behavior, and it's pretty rational, right? It makes sense. Okay, you want hunger. You're hungry. You want food. You want to mate. You want to do this. Like, you can see the action, whether you're looking at a deer or a turtle or a fish. It's like, okay, you're just following your instincts for basic survival. Human beings are so irrational, right? Like, people do dumb stuff all day, every day. People get even more dumb when you put them in groups, right? You think they get smarter, but people actually get more ridiculous and more stupid, right? So look at Minneapolis today. A man got killed on Monday, horrible circumstances, et cetera. What should we do? Oh, you know what? Let's go and burn down our own neighborhood and our own communities and private businesses and whatever. It's so irrational. You see this on smaller levels, right? Like, why do people smoke cigarettes? It's dumb. It's stupid. Why are you smoking cigarettes? You know it's bad for you. You know it's gonna reduce your lifespan. It's expensive. It's barely got any. People do it, right? We're the only animal that a big problem is people eating themselves to death, right? Like, what are you? This is so irrational. What are you doing? Like, are you getting which other species dies from obesity, right? You're eating so much that you just it's not rational. It's not smart, and you see this kind of everywhere, whether you're online or you're offline, and people are also very easily manipulated. This is the problem, and it drives me crazy. I mean, I used to think that the way I thought and the clarity of my thought was quite common. Right, I used to think that the way I think and the way I articulate myself and whatever, I never realized that it was actually quite rare. When I now put out my stuff there and I'm seeing some of the praise I receive and the things people say or whatever. And, I had someone the other day, someone I greatly respect, tell me that he thinks that I am the greatest thinker on the internet. Right. And I was like, whoa, gosh, like, I'm, but the fact that anyone would even, kind of think that, I'm like, man, I just think that I say what makes sense and it's got nuance, and I don't try to reduce multivariate issues and problems to a single factor, because that's not how the world works. Things are complicated. You can't just say this situation we're talking about. You've got people trying to say this is just racism. That's it. That's all. Like, this is just white on black racism. America is racist. White people hate black people. Cops hate black people. And this is it, right? That's it. There's no more. You don't need any more evidence, no more discussion. This is it. And the cognitive biases kicks in. Every time this happens, people have now seen this happen 10, 15, 20 times. Right? They're not seeing the millions and millions of times it doesn't happen, because that doesn't make the news and there's no story there. So every time it happens, they just get deeper and deeper and deeper into that position. And it doesn't matter, right? You've got people who hate Trump so much that I don't know if you've seen these fake photos flying around of just like random white people in MAGA hats.
Yeah,
and people are saying
online.
People are saying, yep, this is the police officer, and people are just running with it and spreading falsehoods. And it's actually dangerous, because you could get someone killed by doing that. And just raising the temperature. And it's like, man, people need to just slow down and think. And social media makes this so much worse, because it rewards snap judgment, right? Yeah. People want to be, whether people are in the media or they're just a citizen, they want to be the first person who puts out a statement about something, right? They just want to see it, and boom, I want the likes, I want the retweets, I want the shares. And before you know it, within 2 hours, you've got some bull crap flying around the internet that is now false. But people see it, but they don't see when it's proven false. So you've now got millions of people out there who think that the policeman was wearing a Make America White Again hat, and he's a huge Trump supporter, and he was at a Trump rally. So now Donald Trump is now implicated in the murder of George. And you're just like, good grief, man. And this happens so quickly.
Rapidly.
It happens so quick. Yes. And people want it to be true because they hate Trump, and they've convinced themselves that Trump is racist and his supporters are racist and the police are racist and this was a racist killing. So they just want to connect these dots that are not connected, right? Or that we have no proof, no evidence that they're connected. And they want to do it, and they get social validation for it, and their team supports them and roots for them, and they feel like they're fighting. And it's just tiring. And the worst thing about it is that it takes away from where the outrage should be, right? So people have already gone from being outraged about this specific killing, which still needs to be dealt with, by the way. These officers need to be they need to be charged, they need to be prosecuted. That needs to be dealt with. But now people are talking about riots. Now people are talking about Trump. They're talking about race. They're talking about like all this random stuff, which is just a total distraction from actually being able to fix the problem, right? If you genuinely, this is why it frustrates me, because if you genuinely wanted to address some of these problems and some of these issues, which I also believe exist to a degree, I think a lot of people exaggerate it, but there are problems. And it seems very clear that the police in general in the USA, not the majority of them, but some of them, have issues in the way that they're trained or their standards, or they're not respecting their community or understand. It's clear that there is a problem there. Like, we've seen this enough times, not just with black people. I've seen white people be killed. I've seen Asian people. This is clearly a problem. And so this needs to be addressed. But the way you address it is not by firebombing your local Target and looting it, right? It's just ridiculous, and it just creates more division, more anger, more hostility. Keeps raging, and people have this idea that there's this thing as righteous anger, right? You're hearing that now, righteous anger. Maybe this isn't the best thing to do, but it's somehow justified, right? It's somehow justified that if someone harms me, then it's justified for me to just lash out and just cause destruction and cause damage and whatever, because it's somehow justified. And it's just such a, and this has gone on forever, right? You can go back in history, and this has always happened, right? Human beings just have this in them. We're just like a flawed creation. We're a flawed species. And you've seen this manifest in all different ways. It can be along ethnic lines, national lines, racial lines, gender lines, religious lines. People will just fight. People will be divided and fight over craziest stuff. Look at football hooligans. You like Manchester United. I like Manchester City. So you know what? I'm going to throw a bottle at you, and I'm going to fight you in a car. It's like, what?
It's the stupidest thing in the world. You're right.
It's so stupid. It's like, what are you doing? You're not even in the team, right?
You're not even playing.
Yeah, you're not 100%. Even playing. You've just latched onto this thing and this color, and I'm wearing this scarf. You're wearing that scarf. So therefore, you're my enemy, and we're gonna sort of fight. And I'm just like, God grief, what is? It just amazes me that we're simultaneously so advanced and so intelligent, and we've got this amazing technology, and we're talking magically through the internet in real time with video. Like we can do stuff like this, but then at the same time, you've just got this sort of like very base sort of chimpanzee level,
the primitive instinct, right? Yeah,
very, very primitive level of dealing with things. And I'm just like, man, maybe one day we can move beyond this. But given how many thousand years we've been knocking around for, I think it seems to just be innate, at least in a large percentage of the population, probably the majority.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to dissect from that. I think technologically we're moving forward, but I do feel socially potentially we are moving backwards in the way that we definitely interact and the way that our thoughts are, the way that we behave. And I think social media has fueled that in the sense that people forget there's other people on the other side, and there's also a second and third order to people's behavior. So take the Trump example, right, with the MAGA hat. You might think that that's great, and you get a load of retweets, get a load of traction, you get some praise from your buddies that support you, but guess what? Someone's going to probably get attacked tonight at their house, right? Or someone's
Yep.
going to get, death threats through their door. And it's like, do you want that to be on you? But you're not thinking about that when you tweet it. And that's what people need to do is like, slow the fuck down, relax, think, detach yourself from the emotion, and then potentially have something to say. And sometimes it's even better to just keep your thoughts to yourself, man. Like, it's doing less damage than what it is now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, the great thing and the terrible thing about social media is that everybody has a platform. Like that's the greatest thing. Awesome. Everybody has a platform. Oh crap, everybody has a platform. Like some people are dumb. Some people are just angry. Some people are vicious. Some people are not nice. They're not cruel. They're cruel. They're not people who you want to be associating with. So in one hand, it's kind of it's weird. It's like it's good that you can see it and it's exposed and it's out there, etc. But at the same time, if you just let people sort of spew their nonsense into this ether where they feel like, everybody is isolated and siloed off and they're not really, their words have no impact and what they're doing has no impact, then yeah, like you said, people need to slow down, take a breath, step back, realize you are dealing with another human being, and also know when to just walk away. I mean, it's difficult because I mean, I get like just on Twitter, I get about 60,000 notifications a day.
Crazy.
Okay, so just and so much of that is, it's weird. I mean, because I've grown a lot in the past year. The amount of people who've discovered me is crazy, and it's got real pros and cons. It's cool in a way because cool, I can promote what I'm doing and I can inspire people and we can do cool stuff like this and I can connect with people and help people. And most of it is pretty positive. But at the same time, it's like, good grief, man. You're also just the bigger you become a larger target. And you've just got people who don't know you. You have no idea who they are. They have no idea who you are. But they just, that misdirected anger, right?
Yeah.
When people are angry, there's something I've learned. Like when certain people are angry and emotional, they don't really care to target it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So oftentimes, and now that I understand this, I kind of try to bear this in mind. So if someone does say something super crazy to me, occasionally I'll reply, but most of the time I don't. And I do just realize, look, this person's they're not even angry at me. You know what I mean? Like I'm just the vessel. I'm the punching bag that they've seen in their sight. And they're just like, whatever crap they're dealing with in their personal life, whatever it is that's making them angry and discontent. Because happy and content people don't do this. When was the last time that you went on YouTube and you just started disliking videos and writing mean comments on random people's profiles? When was the last time you went on Instagram and just thought, you know what, I'm just going to go on people's profiles and I'm going to just like call them horrible names? Like I imagine you've probably never done that before.
No.
Why? Because you've got a level of contentness and happiness in your life and you're not just mad and angry at the world. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are just mad and angry at the world. And this manifests in different ways. It's certainly better for them to be doing that than to be going out and, causing violence or whatever. But people just want to lash out and they don't really care what they're lashing out at. Coming back to the riots again, you're seeing this. People don't even care that they're burning down their friends, their families, their communities' own businesses and buildings. Like it's just anger. And it's like, look, if you did want to protest, it would make so much more sense to direct it at least at the police, right? Like, you see what I mean? Like that would at least make sense. I'm not even, I never ever condone violence, but if you wanted to, make a strong stand and, come together as the community and have thousands of people outside the police station demanding justice, etc., that is the way to do it, right? They will hear that. They will see that and be like, okay, we cannot sweep this one under the rug, right? That would be effective. But when you just direct that out just with incontinence and just spray it all over the place, then people just look at you like, and even the sympathy that people had, it's lost now.
Yeah.
Right? You had this wonderful moment for maybe a matter of hours where people across the political spectrum are like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. This is a humanitarian issue. A man was just killed here in cold blood. Whether we're white, we're black, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, 98% of people were like, that was messed up. where are people's minds now? They're seeing the setting on fire. Now they're like, look, that sympathy, sure, you might still have it for the victim, but for the sort of wider community, you're now like, well, what's this? This is stupid. Like, how I don't have sympathy for this. This is ridiculous. And it's so counterproductive, and so many people do things individually and in groups that are just so counterproductive for what they claim to be striving for. It's just like constant self-sabotage. And I do personally find it very frustrating.
For sure, man. And, it's like taking one step forward and two steps back in that sense. It's the fact that why are you rioting and looting, creating violence? Because that's going to cause the police to actually have a bit more of an eye on you now, right? And that might even incite even more violence. It's like, hang on a minute. Like, we're not saying what the policeman did is wrong. It completely is, but you need to manage that situation in a much more responsible manner and not deal with things like that, man. It's the same with anything you do. You don't need to act in an emotion. But, I think it is the way that we're programmed. And from a young age, I think Dave Rubin said something great on his podcast. It's like we grew up with factory settings, and it's our responsibility to program ourselves in a different way. And I do feel that just the environment that we're in creates this outrage if you're not aware, man. And, fortunately, I think for me and you, we've traveled to different places, been around different people, and, have had that. But other people, they don't question things, remove the critical thinking, and that straight away creates what you see right now: violence, stupidity.
Yeah, it does. And, I'm sure personality traits are just a factor as well. I'm not a hyper emotional person. I'm not someone who's very neurotic at all. I'm in like the bottom 2% of the entire population for that. So in any situation, I'm going to be probably the calmest person in the room. And so I understand that. I understand people are more volatile than I am and have shorter tempers, et cetera, than I am. But still, like, we are adults. We're dealing with adults here. If a 2-year-old is being irrational and throwing temper tantrums and throwing their toys out the pram, literally, as we say, then that is more understandable, and we can have more sympathy for that because they're a 2-year-old. When it's someone who's 30 that's doing it, it's a lot less cute, right? Yeah. When it's someone who's 45 who's just being emotionally incontinent and can't, is applying no logic, no rationale, no critical thinking, and is just going with whatever they feel in the moment, whether it's anger or sadness or outrage or whatever, then, especially when it's people doing that en masse, not just one person, en masse, then it's very destructive. And I don't even know what the solution is. There might not even be a solution. This is the problem in the world, is that some problems don't have solutions. And it's a kind of horrible reality to sort of face up to. Things can generally trend towards and get better over a long period of time, but you at least need to diagnose the problem correctly to begin with. And people aren't even wanting to do that. People don't even have the patience to diagnose the correct problem. So now people are fighting against things that you're fighting against the wrong thing now. You're not even, you're just in the wrong place. And it's like, I don't know, it's you're trying to drive to Newcastle, but you've got a map to Canterbury, right? You're never going to get to Birmingham because you're driving in the wrong direction. Yeah. And you're just going, and people are cheering you on. Yeah, go, like, drive faster, go. And it's like you're literally going down the wrong road. And that just seems to be happening on multiple things. And I do believe that majority of people are decent, and majority of people are reasonable to some degree in the real world. Maybe not on social media, but in the real world, most people are decent and reasonable. But a big problem is that majority also tends to not want to put their head above the parapet, right? So they don't want to speak out. They don't want to, people run on fear. People run on fear. Fear is the most powerful human emotion as far as I can tell. And people really, really run on fear and intimidation and fear of judgment and wanting to fit in. All of those things are rooted in fear. So most people won't speak up, right? Most people won't speak up. They see something wrong happening. They see something messed up happening. They see society moving in a bad direction, but they don't want to say anything because they're worried about getting canceled or losing their job or losing a friend or upsetting their wife or upsetting their friend or whatever. And it's like, look, I understand that to a degree, but you need to stand for, people need to have the right principles, and people need to have courage and not just let themselves run on fear and cowardice and expect everyone else to do the heavy lifting, because if you expect that, then it won't happen, because it just takes a small minority to really mess things up for the vast majority.
Yeah.
And this is what you see all throughout. This is what you see on every level. Okay. What percentage of people are criminals?
Hardly any.
Right? What percentage of people are criminal? What percentage of people are rapists? What percentage of people are murderers? Tiny. But though that tiny percent ruins it for everybody else. Right? Any religion, right? You get people who are super critical of religion and they'll point to terrorism, etc. Tell me, what percentage of religious people are terrorists? Like, what percentage of political people are terrorists? Like, how many real Nazis are out there? How many real left-wing extremist Antifa terror? How many? It's such a tiny percentage, but that tiny percentage can, one, they can really sort of tar the image and tar the name of those other people, right? So a handful of idiot ISIS bombers or murderers can ruin the name of millions and millions of Muslim people, right? Or a couple young black guys in London who decide to go out and stab people, or some guys in Chicago want to go and shoot someone up or whatever. You then get people who, want to paint, young black men in general are just like dangerous, right? And it can happen with it could be men in general, right? A tiny percentage of men, it's like, a good way to put it is, this is something like 90% of violent criminals are men, but that doesn't mean 90% of men are violent criminals, right? Less than 1% of men are violent criminals, despite the fact that 90% of violent criminals are men. And people, I don't know if it's literally just lack of intelligence or whatever, but people struggle to understand a concept like that. You see what I mean? They think it's either one or it's the other, and one must just be the direct inverse of the other. And it's like, no, that's not how statistics work. Like, that's just not how life works. And people just constantly make this cognitive failure, and it blows my mind in a way, because I think it's quite obvious. I don't think it's super complicated to understand, but yeah, there's always that thing of a minority being able to actually tyrannize a majority, which sort of sounds surprising on the surface, but when you really think about it, you can see a lot of examples where that happens, where just a small percent, even police, right? This one police officer who's done this thing, right? What are people now saying? People are now saying, F the police, screw the police. The police are racist. There's, the whole police, like there's, I don't know, I think there's like over 500,000 people in the police in the US. Okay. So all those 500,000 people are now judging based on the action of a handful. Okay. So now you've just got people who are just like, yeah, man, screw the police, F the police, whatever. And you have you have large groups of people who believe this because anecdotally, just based on what they've seen and perhaps what they've experienced, they've had these negative experiences. They've maybe been, look, if the police bother you 5 times in your personal life, or 10 times, or you see them doing messed up stuff, it's not hard for you. You can easily see how someone would reach the conclusion, F the police. All the police are bad. Like, because all the actions that I remember, all the interactions I remember having with them have been negative. But one, it's you're not even cognizant of the positive ones or the neutral ones, and you're not thinking beyond yourself. You're just thinking, okay, well, this is what I've, it would be like, for example, say that say that you're just like super unlucky, and every time you've had 3 car accidents in the last 2 years, right? Just unlucky, not even your fault, right? I would not blame you for drawing the conclusion that, driving is really, really dangerous and you should not drive cars, right? We should actually maybe ban cars, because I've been in 3 accidents just in the past 2 years. So clearly cars are dangerous, and you're just thinking from your own anecdotal personal experience. But if you actually were to sort of widen the scope and see, actually, how many, out of all the car journeys that are taken around the UK on a daily basis, how many of them result in an accident or whatever? I don't know the number, but it's going to be a very, very very, very tiny numbers.
Tiny
yeah,
percentage.
virtually zero, right? Most people can go their entire life and maybe have like one or two minor accidents, right? Most people go their entire life without having a serious major accident, even if they're in a car every single day. But statistics, human beings don't really like statistics. This is the thing.
They're not good with
right?
numbers, man.
No. Statistics, and I think there's a reason for this. I think because I think it's sort of a relatively new concept in our history in a way, because you never really had to think of big numbers and percentages, etc. It's more like stories. We all know we're more impacted by stories. If I tell you, yesterday 200 people were killed in were killed in an earthquake, or were killed by a suicide bomber. Okay, that sounds bad, but your brain doesn't really, it's bad, but your brain doesn't really, it doesn't have an emotional impact in the same way as if I said, there was a bomb attack in Birmingham yesterday, and there was a mother named Caroline who had 3 children, ages 3, 6, and 7, who were all killed. All of the woman and her children were all killed in the attack. And she left behind her husband, etc. And she was a school teacher. I give you the story, right? Even if I'm now talking about 4 people.
Yeah.
Right, not 200. I'm going into that 200, and I'm talking about one scenario that impacts you more because you relate. You're like, man, that's really like the children, etc. Right? If you just say 200 people, including women and children, that sounds bad, but it doesn't stick with you.
No, you're right.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't stick with you. And actually, this is interesting. I've never spoken about this before, but this is why something like this killing of this man, this is why it causes this reaction. Okay? Because this will happen, and you'll get people who go, yo, 25 people were shot in Chicago over the weekend. Where's the outrage? Part of the reason there's no outrage is because it's harder for the human brain to process that. It doesn't feel as emotionally impactful as knowing, we know this guy's name, George Floyd. I don't know the name of the 25 people who were shot in Chicago.
It's more personal, right? It's personal.
Yes,
it's emotive.
It's personal. It's emotive. You
and
can see the images. You can see the images. You can see the video. I can put myself in that position and be like, man, I can put myself in different positions in that image, right? What if I were the man on the ground? What if I were the bystander? Would I have intervened? Would I have tried to tackle the cop and get him off? What if if you want to think horribly, like, oh, man, what if I were the police officer? What if I were one of the police officer's mates? Would I have had to know to pull him off or whatever? It impacts you personally. Whereas if it's just numbers and stats, then it's the same. Charities know this. There's a reason why when they want you to donate to a charity, they will show you a picture of a starving child who's looking in the camera, and there's emotional appeal. They'll tell you one person's story. They'll have a dog, a sick puppy that's sitting outside in the rain, and its fur is and it's looking into the camera and it's looking sad. That's more likely to make you donate than saying there are 10,000 children at risk in this country, and please give to do this. It's like, no, but this is Jeremy. Jeremy is 4 years old. It's just how human beings work. It's just how human beings work. And again, I think it's funny. There are a lot of things that I think people don't really sort of explicitly think about, but if you do, you will notice that a lot of the things I'm saying here are true, right? It might not be stuff someone has thought about before, but if you think about it and you notice it and you see the patterns, you'll be like, oh, actually that's kind of interesting. That's just how human beings, that's how our minds work. And it's not purely rational, right? On a rational level, you should sort of be the bigger number should be the thing that
scares you. Yeah.
Causes the biggest concern.
I mean, a really good example of that as well. I completely agree with all that stuff you said there. I had a lecturer at uni that basically drew up this 2x2 graph, right, on what happens with world events. And on one side, it's kind of like the severity of the incident. And on the other graph is like how close it is to home. Now, some horrible things happen in lots of parts of the world. Plenty of people die. For instance, there was loads of killings in Africa this one time. I think there was 1,000 people died in a village. Horrific, a huge number. And then there was the Paris attacks, right? And people attach themselves to the Paris attacks. Even though there was less deaths, it's still tragic because of those two things, right? It was pretty severe and it was much closer to home. However, when things are further away from home and further away from our personal life, our emotions, and like you said, the story, people can't relate. But like, there are just as bad things that happen elsewhere in the world.
Absolutely. And it can lead to a lot of, it can lead to a lot of frustration. It can lead to a lot of frustration when you're trying to get people's attention towards certain things, because part of the reason I'm not a big fan of outrage, sort of like outrage culture, let me say, is because, again, it's often misdirected. Like human beings we've only got a certain amount of outrage, right? Every day, every week, every month, I've only got a certain amount of outrage that I can dedicate towards something. So if you waste people's outrage on nonsense, right? On somebody on Twitter used the wrong gender pronouns for a transgender person, right? If you direct your energy towards bullcrap, then actually it takes away the outrage from stuff that is deserving, right? So there are certain things that people should be outraged by, right? There should be anger. There should be anger about certain things. People should not be wanting to tolerate certain things, whether that's sex trafficking or child soldiers or general violent crime, burglary, murder, rape that happens in society, etc. Right? There's a lot of things that are worthy of outrage. But if you look at it in 2020 and the last few years, people spend their times being outraged by nonsense, right? Like by nonsense. Someone wore a certain type of earrings, and these earrings are cultural appropriation. And so now I'm in the UK and I'm angry at a girl in Tennessee who wore a certain type of earrings. So we're going to drag her on Twitter and we're going to like make her life. It's like, why are you even aware of that? Do you see? You
How'd you know that?
You shouldn't even be aware of this. And it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, I don't know if you saw more recently, just as we're recording this, there was that incident that happened. Was it in New York where there was the woman walking the dog and she took the dog off the leash? Did you see that?
I've seen that.
And there was the guy who was like, and she wanted to call the police on him and what? And it's like, look, okay, I think both of them were at fault there to some degree, and that's not cool. But it's like, I shouldn't even be aware of that. Like, you know what I mean? It's look, nobody died. Nobody was robbed. There was no harm came to anybody. It was just like a silly confrontation between two people, but which 20 years ago would have remained between those two people and perhaps a few of their friends that they would have told the story to. Now, millions of people around the world in different countries are talking about this and are hashtagging and are emailing this woman and just blowing stuff up so far out of proportion. And it's like all that outrage is going there. And it's like that outrage is now not being used elsewhere, right? There are still children being trafficked, right? Right? There are human slaves. There are thousands, millions of people who are enslaved. There are people who are getting harmed, who are getting killed, who are getting maimed, who are getting kidnapped. All of this is still happening, but we're here talking about a woman taking, what, and people are sending me messages, DMing me, Zuby, have you seen this? Like, what do you think of this? What do you think? I'm just like, I don't care. You see what I mean? Like, I don't care. Like, I've only got so much outrage, right? Like, why don't we channel this energy towards something that's a real issue and try to tackle like a genuine social problem? And this is why I struggle to take a lot of these social justice warrior type of people seriously, because they don't like to talk about the big problems, right? They want to talk about the nonsense all the time, right? They want to talk about like just some random nonsense that's happening. But when it comes to like, okay, like big stuff, right? Okay, let's talk about grooming gangs. Okay. Oh no, we don't want to talk about that. It's like, okay, well, which is a bigger problem? You see what I mean?
Yeah. And
people don't want to deal with that. Let's talk about terrorism. Let's talk about extremist political and religious violence. Like, let's talk about that. No. We can't talk about that. I want to talk about the girl who wore the wrong prom dress, which appropriated Chinese culture. You see what I mean? And you're just like,
Stupid, yeah.
okay, well,
People will consume themselves in trivial problems, and I think
yes,
it's number one. It's definitely a lack of purpose, because when you have stuff on, like, man, I can't even think about doing half of that shit and reading half
no,
of that. Like, I've got too many things to do, man.
yeah,
Like, how
busy.
do you consume that? And I think secondly as well, people don't want that responsibility of dealing with those big problems either, because there's
No.
only a few people that will deal with
Mhm.
the grooming gangs, that will deal with the sex trafficking, because that stuff's deep, that stuff's very horrible to deal with, and it takes, a tough person to do that in a lot of
Yes.
time. So I think that we see that, and I think the solution is to have something interesting to do with your life, man. Like, when you have things to do and you have
Yeah.
purpose, and I'm all about positivity. I feel that
Mhm.
we've spoken a lot here about a lot of stuff that goes on, the negatives, but you're a very positive guy. You focus on a lot of great things. You're an author, you're a podcaster. There's so much opportunity out there to fill your time with
Yes.
great things, man. There's free people that you can talk to every day, right? That are going to
Mhm.
springbok you into earning more money, getting a great body, relationships, whatever it is you want, man. And like, it's all at your fingertips, but you have
Yes.
to stop, remove your emotions, and decide what I'm going to do here. Am I going to go on this path of an upward spiral to self-improvement, or am I going to go into this rabbit hole of talking about dresses? It's up to
Yes.
you.
Exactly. Exactly. And there always has to be a balance. And this is like a big human question, which I never hear anyone ask or address, which is how much, what is the right level of how much you should care about things that are outside your control? That's a big question,
It's a huge question, yeah.
because you don't want to go, because if you go to one extreme, if you spend all day on the internet and reading newspapers, reading about all the terrible things that are going on in the world and lamenting over many of the horrible things that we have just discussed, and you're hyper aware of it, and you're just seeing it everywhere, and today 23 people died in an earthquake here, this many people died here, this person was murdered there, right? You could literally end up the most sad and depressed person in the world, just sitting there crying over how horrible the world is and how terrible human beings are to each other, right?
Of course.
That can happen. At the same time, you also get people who have this attitude, you hear people say this: if it doesn't affect me, I don't care. And that's not the way forward either, right? That's an
Yeah.
extremely callous, extremely, solipsistic, extremely self-centered way to look at things, right? If you only care about things that affect you, what kind of human being are you? And that's cold, right? That's cold, right? So there is a balance, but I think it's difficult to know where that is, right? How do you, care about things that are happening outside of your immediate circle, that are happening even in other countries or other parts of the country, et cetera? Like, you've got that natural human empathy where
It's
you should
true.
care to a degree, but at the same time you feel powerless, because what, like, I can be angry about this, I can be upset by it, but beyond posting a few things on social media maybe to show some sense of solidarity or sympathy, I can't really do anything, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a tricky one, and it's not something I think gets considered a lot, like, of what's the balance, because you can see what happens when people go too far either way,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you just become very, very negative and angry and constantly in this bad mind state. Or alternatively, you also get people who are just totally oblivious of everything that's going on.
Yeah. And ignore what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, they just ignore, just ignores everything. And also you're kind of losing some of your own humanity. And I think that, you do want people to have empathy around you, because we should care about what's happening to other people. Because if because if we don't, then we're not really a society. If we don't care, like, if my neighbor gets harmed and I'm like, it doesn't affect me, like, what kind of neighbor am I, right?
Yeah.
That's
Of
not
course.
the way you build things. So yeah, it's a tricky one. But coming back to what you said, yeah, I mean, at the same time, with all this said, we live in an extremely prosperous, we're like the luckiest people, pretty much. Like, we're in the top 0.1% of people to ever have been born, in terms of location, in terms of historical time, chronological time. We are so fortunate. Like, what we're doing right now is magic. It's witchcraft, right? Like, this is, if our ancestors could see what we are doing right now, right? Communicating in real time with video, being able to see each other, being able to broadcast this out to the world from different cities. We could do this from different countries. It's magic. Like this, they'd be like, "What? This is, what?" And they think that we did some sort of like magic spell to make this happen, right? I can pick up my phone and I can just reach like thousands of people. I can just send a message that thousands of people see instantly, and it's like, man, this is magic. So you can let these tools use you, or you can use them. You can build or you can destroy. And obviously we're doing this podcast here, so it's very clear that you're a builder, you're a creator, and if you're not building or creating something, then you're probably destroying something. So I recommend people should create.
Definitely, man. I agree with that. And I also think as well, we're kind of new to this whole age of technology and social media, and we don't have kind of like the blueprint or the rules. We're kind of like a kid in the playground, right? Just growing up, and we're like, oh, look at this over there. Yeah, you run over, you throw something at someone, you're like, let's do this. And you're kind of not sure about your actions. And I think over these next, hopefully quicker than 10 years, but I think over this next couple of decades, we'll hopefully start to understand the effect of what social media has done, the second and third order impacts, and we can start putting in systems and behaving in a lot more of a responsible manner. I think we can do that straight away, but I know that everybody's not going to abide by that. So, I think this all comes down really to personal responsibility. And I think what you're big on is having no victimhood, right? You're kind of like, I'm never the victim. I'm responsible for myself. And I think this is an important mindset that everybody should adopt. Is like, whatever happens to you, it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility to solve it, right? Like,
exactly.
You've got to take this ownership. And the more that you do that, actually, you build character and you kind of build momentum, and you see yourself as someone that can handle failure and challenge, and you feel amazing afterwards, man. Seriously, going through it, it can be awesome. So going back to the start and back to rapping, I wanted to ask you, what made you want to become a rapper, man? Because not many Oxford grads decide to become a rapper, man.
Yeah, man. Number one, I enjoy it, and I enjoy the creative aspect of. I love creating something in my brain and turning it into something real. When I was a child, that started out with drawing. I used to be I wanted to be a cartoonist actually when I was a kid. So I used to spend all my time. Yeah, I used to spend a lot of time drawing and making pictures and creating characters, etc. And I just loved it. I've always loved being able to conceive something in my brain and turn it into something in the real world. So if you're watching the video, you can see behind me, those are 3 of my album covers there. So I've released 8 projects, and all of them just started in my head. Every single song I've made, it just started in my head as an idea, and I now turned it into a real thing. A couple weeks ago, I released a single called "Okay Dude." I had this situation happen on Twitter. I got temporarily suspended for saying "Okay Dude" to someone. What did I do with it? Right? I turned it into something creative. I thought, I can sell "Okay Dude" t-shirts. All right. I've now sold several hundred of them. Oh, actually, that inspires an idea for a song, right? How about I do a song where I kind of respond to some of the people who are criticizing me? Because I do say "Okay Dude" to mean kind of like, yeah, whatever. And so, I can make a song with that. I can now make a music video. This all just stemmed from one thing. So I love that level of creativity. Beyond that, I also, I know the power of words. I know the power of music and hip hop specifically. And I'm someone whose ultimate goal is to be an inspiration to people. So I love music, and I enjoy doing shows and making songs because it has a positive impact on people. I can have a positive impact, inspiration, reach people through an artistic form with my words. I love words, man. I love words, whether I'm talking or rapping, or public speaking. I love words. I love the English language, in fact, and it's important. It's the most powerful tool that we have. Really, we've been talking about some of the destruction that can be caused with words, but the amount of construction and the amount of positivity that can also be done with words. Words can help people. Words can heal people. Words can teach people. You can learn things. Like, we can talk, and I'm learning from you. You say something, I'm sitting there listening, I'm learning. I say something, you're sitting there listening and learning. We'll both go away from this conversation, and probably, some of the ideas that we've talked about, you'll think about more deeply, maybe even down the line in years. There's things that I was told or that I heard years ago, which have now made me like, that thing just clicked. And it's like, okay, now that makes sense now. Okay, I get that. I get that thing. Okay, I understand that now. And this is what we're doing. It's been happening our whole life, right? You start the world not knowing any words. And then, children start speaking, and people talk to you, and you learn, and you grow, and you go to school, and you have parents, and you have family, and you're just constantly growing. So the power of words is just incredible. So I think I really wanted to craft some. I saw the early signs of that, and I was like, wow, okay, I can make an impact on the world by being a rapper and by making music.
That's amazing, man. And what I like about what you do and your music is it's very unique to basically the industry, because obviously a lot of what you see in the industry now is talking about drugs, talking about
Mm.
hoes, talking about, the N word and all this horrible stuff. And it's very weird because this is glorified at the minute. It's kind of like the way that, again, society is normalized this, right? As
Yeah.
a way of things happening. And, what caused you to want to actually not take that route and go a bit differently?
Number one is that I'm not that person. I'm a positive person. I'm very well raised. I'm intelligent. I come from a great family. I had a good background. I'm very educated. So I'm not gonna come and pretend that I'm some gangbanger who grew up in the hood and slanging that crack and moving that dope and all that. Like, firstly, it would just be BS. Like, it would be nonsense.
Yeah.
And also, it's not the message that I would want to put out into the world. Even if I'd like to imagine that even if I did come from that kind of background, that I still wouldn't rap about that. Like, I still wouldn't be putting negativity out there and wanting to, have young children, have young people who are listening to my music, and what they're getting from it is that kind of message. Because words do have an impact, like we said, and in the long term, I mean, a lot of the power of hip hop specifically is that hip hop, somewhat to some degree, determines what is cool in society, right? Hip hop culture is extremely powerful. So I'm not in the camp of thinking that, oh, yeah, all rappers must be role models and, we need to police their language or their speech or whatever. No, far from it. But the idea that it has no impact whatsoever is also ridiculous, right? We know that hip hop culture has influence. We know that music, not just hip hop, we know that music influences young people, especially, right? The way they dress, the way they talk, the slang that they use, the things that they aspire to, what they think is cool, what they think is not cool. A lot of that is shaped by music and other aspects of culture. And people need to realize that and perhaps take it a little bit more seriously. Think about what it is that they're consuming. Think about what it is that they are putting out there. If you're an artist, if you're someone, any public figure, think about what it is that you are putting out there. Because even if you don't want to be a role model, sometimes you end up being one. So
Yeah.
you get a lot of, you get a lot of musicians and whatever, they'll be doing interviews to say, yeah, I'm not a role model. And it's like, that's not your choice.
Yeah.
Right. That's not your choice. Even as an adult, as an adult, you might be a role model to somebody. Certainly I'm not a parent yet, but certainly if you're a parent, you are a role model, right? If you have a child, kids are little sponges. Like, they will pick up on stuff. Even if you think they're not listening, you think they're not paying attention, they're hearing what you're saying, they're seeing what you're doing, and they will be modeling themselves after you. So people need to be hyper aware of that we are constantly doing this sort of on a large collective basis. I mean, that's what culture is. If you think of it, that's really what culture is. Like, we're on a huge scale. We're seeing what other people are doing and what the people came before us are doing, and we're sort of typically, taking most of that on and, changing little bits here and there. But generally, that's what a culture is. That's why if you're in the UK, it's like this. If you go to America, it's like that. If you go to Indonesia, it's like this. If you go to Saudi Arabia, it's like that. All human beings, but the culture is different.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important.
Yeah, for sure, man. I agree with that. And do you think one of the reasons why you kind of are an independent rapper is because you did want to go against the grain and do your own thing? Was that a reason why?
It's a factor. It's also, I didn't want to wait for anybody.
Yeah.
Right. I just wanted to, when I was 19, when I put out my first album, I just thought, hey, like, I don't need a label. I can just, I Googled, how do you make CDs? Right.
Just hustle,
I had
man.
I had the music recorded. I was like, oh, okay, I can just make my own CDs and then I can promote them and I can sell them. And yeah, I might not sell 100,000 or 1,000,000 copies, but if people like my music, I'll sell some. And then once I kind of got into that mentality and had put out a few releases, I just, there's never a day where I'm like, oh, maybe I should sign to a record label or something. It's just not even on my radar. And I like the way I do things. I like having creative control. I like having business control. I'm a little bit of a control freak, maybe in that regard. I could probably sort of like,
Yeah,
loosen the
I'm a
grip on.
control freak as well, man. So don't
Yeah,
worry.
yeah. I think I do so many things now that I'm probably going to have to start delegating some more stuff. But yeah. So that's the prime reason I decided to go and stay independent.
Yeah, no, I respect that. And I'm similar as well in the sense that I'd rather have my own control over where I dictate myself, the direction I go. And that's what kind of why I set up my own business and launched it all myself, no investment, just reinvest the profits, because I think that it's good to have something that's your own and that you have control over, man, because there's so much in life that we don't have control over. And I say this to people that are potentially even just working corporate or, doing another career, have something or build something that's like your own, that's got your name on it, man, because
Mhm.
it's so fulfilling, even if it's just a hobby. You can get so much out of it, which I think is awesome. One thing I wanted to ask you as well, man, was the increase in following, was that all due to that deadlift video?
No, that was just a tip of the iceberg, man.
Was that tip of the iceberg? Yeah. So how did that all
was
happen for the audience that want to know?
like why did I do it? You mean?
Yeah, the deadlift video.
Okay, well, for years and years, I've seen this sort of gender ideology and theory sort of seeping into all these different areas. I started seeing these different situations popping up in various countries and in different sports where you have biological males competing against biological females, which is stupid and ridiculous and dangerous in certain cases. And I just kept seeing this thing, and it was sort of like it seemed like it was becoming more and more common. I was seeing these stories more and more frequently. And so out of curiosity, I just thought, I wonder what the British women's deadlift record is. And I Googled it and I realized, oh, okay, like I can obliterate this. Like my best lift is way beyond this. And so the video that went viral, that was a video that was already on my phone. It was just from one of my training sessions of me deadlifting 230 kilos, which was more than the record. And so I just posted up saying, hey, I keep hearing about how biological males have no strength advantage over women in 2019. So watch me destroy the British women's deadlift record without trying. P.S. I identified as a woman while lifting the weight. Don't be a bigot. And when I posted this, I had 19,000 followers at the time. So I thought my followers would find it quite funny, but I did not expect it to become this global phenomenon. this global viral.
It was on Sky News and places like that, right? Crazy.
It went crazy. It went bananas. I mean, the tweet itself has done about 9 million impressions and 2.6 million views, but it went viral off Twitter too. It went viral on Facebook, on Instagram, on, YouTube, and, Joe Rogan talked about it. It was on Piers Morgan talked about it. It was on Fox News, Sky News, BBC. This thing just went crazy. It just went crazy. So that gained me several tens of thousands of followers, but also people rediscovered Zuby, right? That was one thing, but people were like, oh, cool. He does music. Oh, he's got a podcast. Oh, he's actually like interesting. Oh, I like this guy. So people go viral all the time, but now let me say, people have tweets that go viral all the time, but the person themselves doesn't go viral because there's nothing of substance and particularly interesting beyond that one moment, right? That one piece of content.
Yeah, exactly.
Me, I go viral every day.
Yeah.
It's rare for me to have a day where I don't have at least one tweet that gets like 3,000 to 10,000 likes. And I go viral like just all the time now. And it's I think people like a lot of different things about me, and part of that is that I'm honest, like I'm authentic. I tell the truth. I'm not super duper like mega biased or mega ideological. And, I have my beliefs. I have my principles. I'm not afraid to voice them. And, I get a message I get multiple times a day is, I don't agree with everything you say, but I respect you so much. And I love the fact that like there's somebody out there who is not just sort of singing from the hymn sheet and just saying whatever nonsense of the day is supposed to be woke or is supposed to be popular or is supposed to be whatever. Like, I don't care. Even if everybody disagrees with me, if I think it's correct, and I'm open to, and I'm also open to criticism. I'm open to changing my mind. If someone thinks I'm wrong on something, I'm not just going to be double down and triple down. I'll be like, okay, let me know your position. Like we can talk about this, or if you have facts for me, if I say I think this is this, and then someone's like, oh no, actually you're wrong, it's that, I'll be like, oh okay, yeah, you're right. I changed my mind. and a lot of people are not willing to do that. So yeah, there's that. And then, I do a lot of things. I've got my interest in fitness and music, and I don't consider myself super political, but some people see me in that light. And so there are a lot of different audiences that I can sort of tap into, because I've transcended just being a rapper. So I've got people who, it's crazy. I mean, because beyond just, numbers, some of the people who follow me are like, I'm followed by some really famous people. Like I'm followed like big,
big names.
Yeah. Like big names. And I've had them DM me and be like, man, like you are awesome. Like, you're inspirational. And I'm like, whoa, like this is coming from someone who I massively admire. Yeah, massively admire, whether, even, guys like Joe Rogan, like the fact that he even wanted to bring me, have it on the show. And, he talks about me on the show, and I'm just like, man, like that's someone who I really admire and respect. And he's done all this and whatever. So, wow, that's cool to have someone like him kind of in my corner. Or, I went to the US and, I've got people reaching out to me, whether it's Dave Rubin or Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson. It's like, yeah, get Zuby on the show. And I'm just like, man, I got invited to go to the White House. I got invited to go to the Pentagon. And I'm just like, wow, this is crazy, and not to like one crazy, like it was crazy when in both the Pentagon and the White House, I got recognized.
Really?
Like I'm in the Pentagon and someone comes up to me and is like, you're Zuby, right? And I'm just like, what the heck? Like
that's surreal. That must have been surreal.
It's weird. I'm an independent artist from Southampton, England, right? Like, firstly, why am I in the Pentagon? And secondly, why does anyone here even know who I am? And then the same thing happened in the White House. I'm in the White House and people are coming up to me saying, yeah, I'm a big fan of what you're doing. Like, keep it up, keep speaking the truth. And I'm just like, wow, okay. So, I get a lot of people tell me that I'm wasting my time on Twitter and social media or whatever. And I'm like, man, if this is a waste of time, then, I don't know what is, yeah. So it's been pretty crazy, it's been pretty crazy, but, it's a blessing, it's really a blessing. It's an honor. I've been working hard for many, many years to, build my influence and grow my audience and build my fan base and get my message out there. So I'm happy that I now have a constantly growing platform where I can reach people and, hopefully have some kind of positive effect.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think you touched on a good point there is, you were handing out CDs probably in Southampton, 7-8 years ago, however long it was when you first started your album, man. And people will see you as potentially the overnight success, or Zuby went viral and he's so lucky, he's so successful. But really, man, you've been grinding, bro, and you've been hustling. And it's the same with most people, man. There's that other side to success that other people potentially don't see. Hello? Sorry. Can you hear me? Did we break up?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, I missed that bit. Go on, man.
Oh, no. Oh, I just said my first album was 2006.
Oh, so 2006, man. 15 years ago.
Well, yes. So for anyone talking about, overnight success, that's, I don't even consider myself successful yet anyway. But in terms of getting to where I am now, that gives us some perspective on it.
Yeah. For sure, man. And kind of over the next 5-10 years, obviously you've got a lot going on, man. What are your goals, man? Is it the rapping you're looking forward to? The life coaching that you do, fitness? Where do you want to see yourself?
Man, that's a good question, bro. I want to just do more of. I'm already doing what I want to be doing. I just want to do everything on a bigger, better, wider scale, more international. I want to be doing more music. I want to be doing more concerts. I want to be writing more books. I want to be doing more podcasts. I want to be doing better podcasts. I want to be in, whatever I do, I want to be doing more public speaking. I'm already doing the things that I love and the things that I want to do. So it's just kind of like a matter of scale and magnitude now, just to continue to grow the platform, grow the audience, grow the influence. And yeah, man, keep inspiring people and keep putting out content and stuff that helps people, whether that's more, in whatever realm. I've kind of accepted. Last year was a big transitional year for me, because last year I sort of had to accept this new role almost, right? Because up until then, I was always just been known for my music. Right? I'm a rapper. I'm Zuby the rapper, And then suddenly it's like, oh, okay, I'm now known as,
Public
I'm
figure.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still, I'm still a rapper, but a lot of people know me for a lot of stuff beyond that. And I've learned that I can't totally control that. You see what I mean? Like I used to always want people to just know me for my music, and I didn't want other things to get in the way or to distract from it or whatever. But there's no reason I can't do music and other things, because I do have other interests outside music. I do have other things I can talk about and spread knowledge about, and things that I can share, which I think are important. So rather than using just the one tool, it's like, okay, well, I've got 5 or 10, I've got 10 different tools at my disposal here, right? I can write a book. Cool. I know I can write a book now because I did it. I didn't know I could write a book until last year. I did it now. Now I know I can do a podcast. I started my podcast last year, almost up to 100 episodes now. So, oh, cool. I can do podcasts. Like I can do that. Oh, I can do public speaking. Dope. Like, okay, I can do all these different things. So why limit myself to just one of them? Like it doesn't make sense. Like I used to view it the other way around, but now I'm like, oh, okay, maybe some people can just do one thing, but I'm fortunate or blessed or whatever enough to be able to do lots of them, and to do lots of them well, as far as I'm concerned. And see, my audience seems to think so. So let me just do as much as I can. And if one thing comes to dominate more than the other, then sure, I can put a little bit more on that or whatever. But I'm not trying to. I've learned as well that you really can't control everything. You can't be. I can have I don't know. I could go out and shoot a music video and spend money on it and do all that. And then I can just like open up my phone right now and had to put up a quick video. And that video ends up getting more views and more interaction than the one which I spent £1,000 making. Yeah. And that has happened many times now. That's happened so many times. I put up a video reacting to Joe Biden's comment last week, which got 780,000 views in a day. Right. Yeah. My latest music video, which I paid money for and I spent time on and we had to edit and whatever. Right now it's got about 8,000.
Yeah.
So this video's got 800 times the amount. It took me less time, less energy, and in a way it's frustrating. Yeah. It's frustrating, but it's like, that's just
it happens.
You can't. Yeah. And it happens a lot. My deadlift video cost me nothing. It was 9 seconds, and that's my most viewed piece of content ever.
Yeah.
All the music I've done, all the music videos I've done, all the cool, interesting things I've done, that video is the thing that, and it's like, okay, well, I will accept it. I can't do anything about it. It's just like, yeah, I'll take it. I didn't expect to be known as the British women's deadlift champion, and maybe some people would feel some resentment about that or whatever. But I'm just like, okay,
that's cool.
I will take that, and I can, if I have people's attention and people know who I am, I can always, I'm good at marketing. I'm good at sales. I know how to convert that into something else.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think, like you said, you always had a strong foundation anyway. So, when people found you, you had all this stuff going on. And then people were like, wow, this guy's actually interesting. And like you said, so many people go viral and they don't have the substance there, or they don't have the plan there either, I don't think. So, no, I agree with that. And I think as well, luck is it's about turning up every day, man, because I've done it before, man, where I've tried to write tweets and put out content where I think it's going to go viral. The one tweet that went viral, man, I was on talking about mental health, man, and I don't even have a big opinion on it. I tried to give a bit of advice. Bro, it blew up. And it's like, why is that tweet blew up, man? I didn't care about the structure. It just happened. So it's one of those things.
Yeah, you just got to be ready for when it hits.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I thoroughly enjoyed it today. Thank you for coming on. Lastly, before we round off, do you just want to let everybody know where we can find you and link yourself and all that lovely stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So zubymusic.com is my main website. And you can find me on all social media platforms at Zuby Music, Zuby Music. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Just search Zuby and you will find me.
Awesome, brother. Well, it was amazing to have you on. And when this is all over, we should definitely go for a gym session at some point and get a lift in, man.
No doubt. I'm down.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you very much for listening to this episode, guys. Give it a 5-star rating and speak to you soon.